Welcome to this edition of Business Redefined. Now, about 3 weeks ago, the Court of Appeal finally gave life to Section 20 of the NSSF Act of 2013. This matter has been in the courts for about a decade long, and there's been so much debate about what this means as far as your deductions going towards the National Social Security Fund are concerned. We're delighted to have the chairman, Mr. Anthony Munyiri. Karibu sana mkubwa.
Thank you very much, Asante.
Let's start from that point. It's been 10 years or so in the corridors of justice. And looking at where we are right now, do you feel that the fund has the buy-in from the public on this matter of enhanced contributions?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, we were delighted on the 3rd of February when the Court of Appeal ruled in our favor to enact the Act 45 of 2013, which has been in court for roughly 9 years, actually. What we're getting from out there and the calls we're getting that we've been receiving since that particular time and after we issued the statement of immediate implementation are positive. 60 to 70% people, employers out there willing to comply with the new act. And I feel that we're getting the support, even from employees themselves, because generally it's a big win for the employees, because it guarantees a better retirement during their sunset years.
Okay. For Kenyans who might be hearing about this from the first time watching you and I have this conversation, just give us a summary what exactly this means in terms of their contributions to the fund.
Yes, so basically what Act 45 of 2013 means to the employer and the employee out there is that it's based on the minimum wage of 2013, then at 6,000 shillings. So 6% of the 6,000 shillings is equivalent to 360. And there is the employee and employer match. So 360 twice gives you 720. Yeah. So we have the bandwagon of those earning above 6,000, but not more than 18,000 because there's a cap of how much you can deduct. So we are talking about 18,000 and less 6,000 is 12,000. So that's what they're terming as Tier 2, or rather that is what is termed as Tier 2. So you again make contributions of the Tier 2, and the total sum comes to about 2160 when both employee and employer deduct. So it's 2160.
So that's 1,080 and 1,080 both sides. The question has been raised that when it comes to Tier 2 and the option for opt-out, there are concerns outside here around what would this mean for the employers especially, because already we are running schemes which we think are working well for us, and we feel that the opt-out provision is a bit too tedious for us. Any comment on that?
Yes. You see, unfortunately, the Tier 2 opting out option, I would look at it as a negative to us as NSSF, because that means anyone who's out there is running another scheme has that right to move it away from us. But again, what that does is that it makes us now be competitive, because the private pensions that issue services as well will start competing for the new money that has been unlocked. There's that. We are actually the ones who feel that we need to do something better, and that gives us an opportunity now to give better returns, for example, to remain competitive, because the private pension fund managers will be competing for the same.
All right, and speaking about doing better, many Kenyans I've spoken to have told me we don't actually have a problem with the higher deductions towards NSSF. The problem we have is when it comes to matters of corporate governance. And sometimes I sit back and I think, when I look at NSSF, I can scarcely think of any other institutions more oversighted than NSSF, because there's RBA, there's Parliament, there is CMA to some extent. So what sort of assurance can you give Kenyans as far as corporate governance is concerned?
All right. I'd like to assure Kenyans that their funds are safe. Yes, I do admit we've had historical issues dated way back 20, 30 years from now, back. When I look at, in the last 20 years to be specific, The interest rate regime has been quite stable. This is going back to the late Mwai Kibaki's term, where we had interest rates even way below 5%. And even during the former President Uhuru Kenyatta's regime, we had a relatively stable regime with interest rates. The barometer we use to give returns is usually the Treasury bill. And the recent financial year, 2022-2023, NSSF gave a return of 10%, which is way good, I would say. Because if you compare with private fund managers out there, they will normally give you on average 9%. So we actually gave 10%. So going forward, we are looking at even doing better, because as we speak right now, interest rates have edged up.
Yeah,
a good thing for people who are willing to invest in treasury bills and bonds, because you'll get a better return. But a bad thing for the government as well, because it costs you more, or it will cost the government more. But in terms of corporate governance, we have over time continued to strengthen the structures that we have internally. And I thank the government for also making sure that the board has the right personnel or the right people who understand what the objectives of the fund are. And I also thank the social partners, COTU and FKE, for giving the same qualified and competent people on the board. And now it's our job as the board to ensure that we also put the right people in management to ensure that corporate governance is adhered to. Over time, yes, there have been complaints, but going forward, I think we're okay. But again, there's a misconception out there that we're the ones who hold the funds. We are actually not allowed to hold pensioners' funds. We deploy as soon as we receive. And just for the sake of educating the public out there, we have professionals who do various, who provide services for us. Let's start with the actuaries, financial actuaries whose job is to analyze financial risk and costs. Those are on board. We also have the fund managers whose job is mainly to invest in different asset classes. And again, they're also involved in managing risks. And then for safekeeping, we have custodians. So you see, we don't actually handle the cash. We're only allowed by law to hold a small percentage. I think it's about 5%, which caters for our 5% of the assets under management, yeah, which caters for the OPEX, operation expenses that we have over the years, and of course to run the fund. But generally, we have strengthened corporate governance within the organization, and that will be evident going forward. You know, there have been changes around with the new regime, and we hope to do the best. So my message to contributors out there is your funds are safe, and we shall do our best to ensure that we give you better returns going forward.
So speaking about the return profile, and NSSF, like any other fund, has a diversified portfolio. And whereas you have spoken, and understandably so, quite optimistically about the fixed income side, the question comes in, what sort of a hit have you taken on the equity side? Because clearly also you are playing in that space.
Yes, we do. We do exactly that. I think it's good to, first of all, let you know that over 50%, close to 60% of our assets under management are in government securities, majority of that under fixed income. Obviously, not only the Kenyan Stock Exchange has taken a hit, but global markets have also taken, the kind of hit. But we leave that job to our investment managers, fund managers, who are the ones who manage the risk and know exactly where to put and in what asset class to put. And they have the right and jurisdiction to play around. If Safaricom is doing best, they can shift to Safaricom. Or if at all we have a certain counter, a quoted equity that's not doing very well, that's their job. All they do is they come and do their reporting every quarter, and we see as a board and management how their performance has been. But I had mentioned earlier on that we stand a good chance as we speak right now to invest in government bonds which are yielding a better return. Also, it's very important to note that the shilling has taken a beating as well against the US dollar, and some of these bonds that we're holding are in Kenya shilling. I am encouraging management to speak to the fund managers out there and see whether we can actually hold or increase our threshold of dollar-denominated bonds, like Euro bonds, for example. That way we hedge against the shilling and its devaluation, which has been happening of late I think of late we must be at about 131, if not more, to the US dollar. That's the scenario out there. But I commend the fund managers that we've been having on board. It's something that I know we normally check their performances, and they have done extremely well. If you look at the kind of growth we've had, as at 31st December 2022, we are currently at 303 billion. And this growth has been gradual, which is okay. And I think the projections are even looking better going forward.
Okay. And maybe just two quick follow-up questions on that. In the present environment where we have seen, well, the yields are going high, but also inflation is ticking upwards, so beating inflation becomes a challenge there. So my first question there is, in the present environment, what sort of return or yield would you be desirous to see with the fund? And secondly, when you speak about the hedging of the FX risk element, have you tabled a proposal as to where you propose this proportion to sit when it comes to your assets under management being in dollar-denominated investments?
No. Unfortunately, the board doesn't get involved in giving directions to the fund managers. We leave it to them. It's at their full discretion. But, it's a suggestion that I've been talking to, management to convey to the investment managers. Given my background in the investment and securities industry, it's important to hedge with dollar-denominated bonds, because that way, you know very well that your return will be stable, unlike taking a hit on the continuous devaluation of the shilling, and which we hope will take a turnaround. And I'm sure the government is doing all they can to ensure that we stabilize the economy. But again, going back to even, the contribution issue of the 200 shillings, which is what was effected back in 2001. Talking about inflation, the purchasing power of 2001 is not the same as the purchasing power of today, 2023. So all the reason why there has been the push, from His Excellency the President to, push for these increments, because that's a really, really small amount and cannot guarantee anyone who's looking to retire comfortably in terms of, being guaranteed a better package when they get older, But as a fund, we've continued to grow. I know we can do better. I always look at our sisters within the region, and more so Uganda, which has really, really grown within a very short time. And were actually constituted after the Kenyan NSSF. We were constituted back in 1965. I think Uganda came much later. But when you compare the kind of growth, it's been way bigger. They're actually bigger in terms of assets under management than we are. So the push is genuinely a great win for the contributors have been out there.
Okay. When you look at the enhanced contributions to the fund, by what proportion do you expect this to be increased given the new change?
Okay. We collect about 16 billion annually. Gives it about 1.2, 1.3 billion a month.
Sorry, I meant a month, yes.
Yes. So from the month of February, which is when we give the statement that implementation will begin, we expect to collect an additional 7 billion. But coming the financial year 2023-2024, we are projecting this figure to shoot all the way to 27 billion, from 16 billion to 27 billion. So it's a good opportunity for the fund to grow. I mean, it gives us a challenge as the board, as well as management, to ensure that we are growing this fund for the sake of Kenyans. I always look at other schemes like Singapore, for example, where I noticed that employees contribute about 17.5%, which is matched by the employers who contribute the same, 17.5%. So we're talking about a total of 35%, as opposed to what we are right now at 6%, plus the matched 6% is 12%. There's still a gap. So the more you contribute, the more you grow your fund, and it's a positive thing. And we need to be very delicate how we're handling this matter. We've seen a bit of opposition, and it's understood. It's understandable. I mean, those who have called for the push, I believe there's dialogue going on with the ministry, But again, we have insiders for their own reasons, out there who've said a couple of negative things, and we need to be careful how we handle this, because old age poverty is real. We need to be very, very careful where we are going. We shall do our best to ensure that whatever asset classes that we hold continue to grow significantly, because it's an opportunity right now for us even to diversify on the asset classes that we have. Traditionally, we had fixed income, equities, a bit of property here and there, private equity. But we are looking at even other asset classes that give you, higher returns, like, infrastructure, for example, is something that we need to do. Been thinking about other things like private equity, or, in projects concerning electricity generation, for example, but something different, but guaranteeing you a better return than what we're normally used to. We can afford to take some risk, calculated risk, but at the same time, we ensure that, the funds remain safe. That's our goal, basically, going forward.
I see. Speaking about the diversification of the asset classes invested in, how much appetite would the NSSF with enhanced contributions have for the real estate sector? And I'm asking that because a lot of the push we've seen from the political sphere has been around affordable housing and what this could mean. But there's always the question around the downturn in that market, as well as the asset liability mismatch that you might need to easily exit and you can't. So how much appetite would you have for that space?
Well, given the historical issues that we've had, we hold quite a bit of idle land. And we have recently discussed at board level and we're looking forward to a full board sometime next, before the end of this first quarter, to make sure that we get out of the idle land, or we develop and add value on the idle land. It's not our business to hold land anyway. But talking about affordable housing, we look forward to supporting the government agenda, more so within savings and the pensions, sector. And affordable housing is one of them. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet before we discuss and pass as a full board, but it's right at the top of our agenda. We shall support the government in affordable housing agendas, but again, at the same time, we want to develop the land that we've been holding, that's been lying idle for quite a long time, and see what we can do. Some of them may be some luxury apartments here and there. Others could be a mixed use with affordable housing as well as other related, real estate projects. But yes, we'll there. But in terms of proportion, we don't have a very, very big appetite on property. If you look at it, I think, like I mentioned, over 60% of our AUM is in government securities. And the rest is now under, about 18% under property. We have a bit of private equity of them. Yeah, and that's our mix. So the enhanced contributions we want to make sure that we're investing in minimal risk-free, if I can call it that way, investments and asset classes that guarantee returns. Our job right now, as we speak, and given the tier 2 option that we know very well, we are going to compete with the private sector out there. We want to see whether we can actually match the same competition.
Okay. How do you assess the efficiency of the fund? And I'm coming from the standpoint of when you look at your overheads and expenditures vis-a-vis just what you generate. Sometime last year, I did put out a tweet on this matter and it went viral over the same conversation. Is there anything being done to streamline that?
Yes, a lot is being done. That has come up. I'm aware that we have a threshold of we shouldn't operate at more than 1.5% of our AUM. That was slightly higher. In our next financial year, those figures are being brought down. We strive to be efficient in terms of our OPEX. That's a concern I am totally aware. And it's not just been raised within, but even outside. People have seen, like you just mentioned to me, we want to cut down on the expenditures which were there. And that's already being addressed within management. And I'll oversee that actually happens. We want to make sure that we're within what is are provided for by RBA, which is 1.5% operational OPEX of your total AUM. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's been slightly higher, but again, it's part of governance that we're trying to make sure that we strengthen going forward. And I'm personally very, very keen on how we operate going forward, given that I just came on board beginning of last month. Yeah.
Many Kenyans ask me this question of what is NSSF doing around netting the informal economy into contributions?
That's a very good question. Thank you very much. We are doing quite a lot. We are doing quite a lot. We do have a product by the name Haba Haba. Haba Haba is a product that is targeted towards the informal sector. And we've been in talks with the matatu industry. We have also been in talks with the Boda Boda industry. The other day, the president of Boda Boda, Kevin Mubada, paid me a visit. We look forward to taking that discussion further. It is something that we are very, very keen in growing. We launched Haba Haba back in, I think, in 2019. It's not done very well, but we just need to sensitize more and do a bit more of campaigns out there and see what we can do. Ask me my personal view. Maybe we need to put an incentive on Haba Haba. We go out there and say, hey, we have this product, but we attach a certain element of, say, for example, an insurance, like a maternity insurance for the women out there. But again, we put another one because of the perception that the men will see on the other side. We can also say, hey, we have a small option that you can borrow against this and pay, say, education for your kids. So I believe it lacks a bit of incentive, but I believe internally we are working on it to make sure that it comes out as a stronger product than it was when it was launched. Our efforts is to make sure that we grow the the members who contribute towards NSSF, both formal and both informal. That is something that we are doing. And I'm glad even the other day we were approached by a very big organization. They're willing to assist us to do the same thing. It's basically a program connected with the youth and that kind of a thing. And part of those things would be to use NSSF as an agent in between to go out there and speak and voice out the reason why the youth out there in the informal sector needs to come. That would mean now we improving our systems, putting a bit more funds onto our PR budget, that kind of a thing. But I think in the next remaining months of the calendar year, you'll see quite a bit of us speaking out towards the informal sector.
Okay. Have you done any market sounding just to tell you that potentially you could collect this much from the informal economy?
It's really hard to predict how much you would collect because, they don't have pay slips. What we are trying to do is, encourage them to save 25 shillings a day. So when you tell them to contribute that, it's really hard, if you go to Mudhuru and try and tell, the guy there that he hasn't contributed that much. That's why I'm saying we probably need to just put an incentive on our Haba Haba so that he knows when he's closing his business of the day, he remembers that I've not given my 25 shillings to Haba Haba at NSSF because I need it. I have a kid in school, or my wife is pregnant, for example, or I am pregnant if it's you, So those are the kind of things that I'm saying, and I've said to management that we need to put together and come out and make a little bit more of noise out there in the market and make sure that, Haba Haba is a product that will be, recognized within the informal sector.
Okay. Chairman, I received lots of emails around a backlog of payouts to pensioners from the fund. What is the state of, as far as that is concerned, and how are you accelerating this?
Yes, I totally agree. It's part of what we're trying to do in terms of streamlining our operations, business process re-engineering. Very, very much aware that there has been delays, and it's regrettable that workers will work 35 years or 40 for that matter, and wait another year to, to receive. So part of the measures that we've taken, and it's in line also with, the government circular, which has given government institutions 6 months to digitize. So we are working on that. And this is something that we discussed 2 weeks ago in our strategic paper discussion in Mombasa with our parent ministry and the CS, Madam Florence Bore was in our company. It's also in our top agenda to ensure that we are digitizing our operations to make sure that members can use biometric gadgets which are matched in the systems. Once you come and you put your fingerprint right there, it identifies you and quickens or shortens that process. And I think that should happen in the next 6 months or less. Actually, we are in line with the government. I would give it shorter than that. And that will hugely reduce that payout period that people are complaining about. And I'm sure you come back here again next time I get to see you. Ask me how far I've gone with the biometric process. I'll be glad to tell you it's now in function.
Okay. Maybe just to wind up, my question then is, do we have a sense of just how large this backlog is? The quantum number, the backlog which is delayed in payouts, yeah.
Actually, I don't have that number. I'd want to find out. But usually, retirees, every month there's someone retiring. It's a continuous thing. It's a continuous thing. But I've taken a walk around the institutions. I've seen it myself. The issue is all about the manual processes that have been going around, and now I think I've been to Mombasa branch, for example. I'm using it as a pilot branch. I want to use this, the regional office here in Nairobi as well. And yeah, like I said, give us a short time. The board and I are very keen on implementing these new changes to make sure that those men and women waiting for their pensions are not disgruntled going forward. And that should be the norm, actually, about NSSF in future.
Chairman, my final question. I've received a lot of feedback from employers regarding the new enhanced deductions. As we close this conversation, what would you say to them? One thing, employers are actually represented on my board. We have FK on my board. The only reason it looks strange when...
No. It's, it's out there in the public. Yes, there are those who are asking for a little bit of a push. And, I think I mentioned earlier on that there's some dialogue going on between our parent ministry and ourselves. But I'll be honest as well, we have most of the employers who've actually called us here, and they're looking forward to comply. That has not been an issue, by the way. I do feel, for those who are saying that, they've already run their February payrolls and that kind of a thing. But again, Julian, the thing is, the law is the law. We have to implement as per the law. We are always open to dialogue, and I'm sure that is happening. But like I said, majority of the calls we're receiving, 60 to 70%, are positive. Everyone wants to comply. It's a good thing, So like I said, let's be careful how we're handling this issue. I'd said earlier on, there are those who are not against, very well we've been taken to court again. The Supreme Court, that I cannot discuss, it's a matter in court. But when you look at it in general, it's a noble idea for everyone. Everyone out there, you get to save more. You get to have a guaranteed retirement package whereby you'll be paid a monthly check after your retirement years. So I want to call upon the employers out there to support this act, and we're open to dialogue again. I've seen it the other day. They, who are the, Ministry of Labor, and I believe we can always work around the whole thing rather than, going back to court and stopping the whole issue again. We're there. We're there, and again, we are partners. We are social partners on the board. It has been positive, to be honest. It's just some little soft issues, I guess. Maybe, to be specific, how to go around the tier 2 opting out, all those things. That's where the bone of contention is. I know they are in support for sure, but I think the issue is now those soft issues around, you know, how long will it take? RBA is the one responsible. They gave guidelines, but, you know, the steps taken, how long, how do you go about it? I believe that's where the issue is.
Okay. Maybe just now to close, and this is my very last one, now that you've prompted me into it. Suppose I had run my payroll for sure, by the way. Are we waiting for guidance from RBA? Do you have an opinion on it, or how does it work?
How it's been working is employers are supposed to remit by the 9th of every month. So, for example, since the implementation was effective immediately after the 3rd February Court of Appeal ruling, that means that we're expecting to see this within NSSF on the 9th of March. That's how it works. What we did, we gave a statement immediately after. We thanked those who were compliant, because it's good for you to know and everyone to know that we have those who were compliant back in 2014 and have continued to be compliant going forward. Beautiful thing. We thanked them. You know, whether or not the court case was going on, they were compliant. Now, we also encourage the ones who are not compliant to be compliant. We are human beings too, you know. We have compliant officers here. It's a matter of calling. They've been calling. They are being guided on how to go about it. That's what we expect. So nothing changes. It's the way it has been in the past. It's the 9th of March, and that's the way rolling out, going through, you know. And of course, now we do have a bit of catching up to do because of the ones who had, stayed back. But that shall be. That's now our job now. The compliance guys will call, find out who's not being compliant and who is, you know, and that kind of thing. But I think it's a beautiful thing that has happened to the retirement and pensions industry. And on behalf of NSSF, I say thank you very, very much. Yes.
Chairman, thank you so much for your time.
You're most welcome.
Truly appreciate it.
Thank you very much.